Welcome into episode 549 of the Skate Podcast. I am Brian DeFelice, joined by Bridget Prue and Scott McLaughlin on this beautiful, kind of dreary Monday, March morning. And it's going to get even more dreary on this podcast because I think there might be some disagreements between you two.
There's a storm of brewing.
Yes, exactly. Well said.
Winter's back. Good news, everyone. We officially hit spring and it starts snowing again.
Yeah. There was some positive news over the weekend, though. Of course, the Bruins had a huge regulation win over the Detroit Red Wings. Of course, there's going to be some James Hagens conversation as well. But Scott, why don't we first go to you with your opening shift?
Yeah, Jeremy Swayman was awesome in Detroit. Biggest game of the season, biggest win of the season. Swayman. So originally it was 41 saves and 43 shots. I just noticed they actually updated it to 42 saves and 44 shots. So they threw in an extra shot somewhere. But yeah, like these are the games you need your number one goalie. These are the games you pay Jeremy Swayman $8.25 million for. And he was excellent. And John Gibson on the other end was not. Gave up 2 goals that, he'd probably like back. All in really just a critical 5-minute stretch in the third period where Detroit goes up 2-1. The Elias Lindholm ties it again and beats Gibson 5-hole. One of those shots he probably should have stopped. Then Detroit goes on the power play and Swayman just stands on his head and makes 4 saves. 3 of them I would classify as just grade A, high danger robberies. The shot that the Moritz Seider shot that he finds through heavy traffic and just gets his glove on. Alex DeBrincat point blank in the slot, like just great goaltending. And then as the game went on, had a couple more saves down the stretch. So I think 21 saves in the third period alone. And so the Bruins get, a little bit of separation into that first wild card spot. And now after the Islanders won Sunday night, Detroit now actually the odd man out, like on percentage points, is now out of a playoff spot right behind the Islanders. So obviously still a crazy race and still 12 games to go, but this was a huge one. We talked about it going into it. Money Puck does their playoff odds, and this was like a 20 percentage point swing if the game was decided in regulation. Basically, if the Bruins won in regulation, they were 78% chance to make the playoffs, which is where they are now. If they lost, they went down to like 57%. So a massive win and a terrific performance from Jeremy Swayman, who I think is emerging as a legitimate Vezina Trophy candidate. Betting odds are still not quite treating him that way. He is third in odds, but like way behind Ilya Sorokin and Andrei Vasilevsky. I'm not saying I would have Swayman as the favorite right now. I think third place is probably where he is, but I would have that race much closer. I would not have Swayman as like a plus 2,200. I think the last time I saw the betting odds, like I'd have him just about right there knocking on the door.
So you think for our listeners, it's good, go throw your money on that?
Yeah, good. Go throw your money on that. And then there's another really good bet that I think Brian's opening shift might touch on. So I'll save that.
Worth mentioning, Scott, the Islanders win you mentioned was over Columbus, right? Which is that other team that's battling. So right now you have the Bruins as wild card 2 with 86 points, 70 games played. As you mentioned, the Islanders leapfrog Detroit. So the Islanders are now wild card 2. Wait, sorry. Did I say the Bruins are wild card 2? I don't know what I said. Bruins are wild card 1. Islanders are wild card 2. Islanders have 85 points, so 1 point less than Boston, but they played one more game. Detroit, 84 points, so 2 less than Boston, same amount of games played. And then that Metropolitan third spot is also in play when it comes to these teams because it's a revolving door, but Columbus is Metro 3, 85 points, so 1 less than Boston, same games played. And for what it's worth, Pittsburgh, 86 points, Metro 2, 70 points.
Also,
86 points, 70 games.
Yeah. Also, Montreal at Atlantic 3 at 86. So
Yes.
Bruins tied with them on points. Montreal has a game in hand.
Exactly. So who knows which way the wind blows with these playoff. Obviously, you got to get in there first, but you do kind of look at the Bruins, and you got to be careful. You don't want to get picky and whatnot. But if looking at the standings, I think I'd rather the Bruins finish in a wild card spot and avoid Tampa in the 2-3 matchup in the Atlantic. But that again can't get picky. You got to get there first, right?
Yeah, it's like, oh, do you want them to move into third, or but then they would play Tampa, or do you want them to stay where they are and play Buffalo
or Carolina? You know what I mean? Like I'd take my chances on one of those two teams, maybe.
I mean, selfishly, I want Buffalo because that's drivable. I can do those games, and I just think that'd be a lot of fun. I think like seeing some of the atmospheres in these Buffalo games down the stretch. It's been awesome to see them selling out again.
Isn't that like a 7-hour drive? I don't know. It's not that close.
No, but it's doable. I wouldn't have to fly. That's the main thing.
Mm-hmm. So Buffalo's going to be a whole lot of fun in the playoffs, no matter who they play. But if it's an original six in Boston, they'll be even more charged up. I think they'll be charged up regardless. But yeah, that'd be a lot of fun. Okay, back to the opening shifts, and mine is the increased play the last couple of games of Morgan Geekie and Elias Lindholm. We certainly spend a lot of time talking about them when they aren't performing, when they aren't generating, and when they aren't executing. So we, of course, have to talk about them when they flip the switch. And to Morgan Geekie's credit, he has 4 assists in his last 2 games, 3 of them being primary assists. And against Detroit, his 2 primary, all 3 assists were huge. The first one was a secondary assist for the 1-1 goal that Pasternak scored in the 5-on-3. But then he gets a primary assist on Elias Lindholm's game-tying goal, huge goal. And we'll get to Lindholm in a second. And then he finds Nikita Zadorov in transition for the game-winning goal. Now, of course, both goals were kind of leaky by Gibson, but nonetheless, Geekie has found the score sheet as an assist guy lately, and Elias Lindholm gets his first goal with a goalie in the net since January 26th. And just that line in general with Geekie, Lindholm, and Reichel, which I'm sure we'll touch on in Bridget's opening shift as well, but they have looked good, and we know how well the second line's been playing. The kid line continues to play really well. And then I just think that Lindholm and Geekie, it's so important for them to get going down the stretch for this Bruins team. We all know that. We all knew that. It's why there was so much spotlight on them. But I just wanted to give them some props for coming up big when a team needed them, because, like I said, we've talked about them a hell of a lot when they haven't been.
And is Geekie about to go on a tear now that he's found his latest bulletin board material? He's back on Twitter, trolling the trolls. I sent you guys a screenshot of his tweet from yesterday. Somebody said, some random person named Chris said, game over. Boston's not scoring 2 in the third to win this. And then Geekie says, what else does your crystal ball say, Chris? So he's back out. He's back out there. Look out, everybody.
Go on your preferred betting platform. Find the bet that says Morgan Geekie heater and go bet that.
Go bet that. Parlay it with the Swayman Vesna.
Bridget, just one more thing before you go to yours, before I forget to mention it. Just on that Geekie, Lindholm, and Reichel line, just quickly in their 2 games together, a little bit over 19 minutes, 3 goals, no goals against. So it's been, and beyond that, they've just looked a little bit better. They've looked a little bit more rejuvenated.
Yeah, and Reichel drew a penalty shot too. Didn't score on the penalty shot, but just great speed to draw it. Blew right past Patrick Kane, who's obviously lost a step as he's gotten older, but still, like, you see that there's good skaters, and then there's like legit speed where it jumps out even at the NHL level, and like Reichel has that kind of speed where you're like, oh, that stands out even among a lot of other really good skaters.
It's like when you're on the highway and everyone's going 80 and then somebody just passes you at 100 and you're like, where the hell?
Is that you, Bridget?
I'm the one going 80. I'm not the one going 100. I'm still judging those people that are going 100. Like, I thought we were all on the same page. This is 80, even though it's supposed to be 65. But anyway, time for my opening shift. Subject of debate over the last 2 days, ever since Boston College got eliminated from the Hockey East tournament, therefore ending their season. They lost in overtime to UConn in the semifinals on Friday. And immediately Hagens' watch was on. And I think a lot of people thought Saturday, and if not Sunday, there would be news on a signing with James Hagens. But still, as of this morning, we're recording this at 9:30. Well, it's right 9:30 right now. He has not signed with the Bruins. And now that I've said that, this podcast will probably be voided as soon as we finish recording. He'll sign and we'll have to redo this. But so he has not signed, and obviously that has caused a bit of debate around the handling of what should happen, or should he start? And obviously, and I want to put this out there, though, I think this is the very far, far least likely option. He could stay in college, but I don't see that happening, but it is an option. So I'm going to throw that out there as the third option. So option 1 starts in Boston. Option 2 starts in Providence. Option 3 stays in college. And we thought we would have some clarity on what that was going to look like as of right now, Monday morning. And you'd think you'd want to get the practice in today, right? Scott's about to head out to practice after this to get time to build chemistry. If he was starting and he was going to play on Tuesday, it would have made sense to get him practice time today as well. And I just think people thought it was going to be faster, the decision. And we can debate now what is best for him and the team and why we're currently still waiting for the decision to be made.
Yeah, a couple of things. I did think it would be done by the end of the weekend. I thought Sunday was more likely than Saturday. Obviously, neither happened. I'm not super shocked that it's gone. I would be shocked if it goes a lot longer. Like if we're talking on Friday's episode and it's still not done, I'd be really surprised by that point. I'm not super surprised it's not done by Monday morning. Sometimes these things aren't quite as turnkey as I think people would like, or even as some other signings might be. And there's reasons for that, right? Like, so I went through this, and this situation, talking about a 19-year-old, 1 year post-draft, jumping into a playoff race out of college is pretty rare. And I feel like that has gotten largely ignored in like all the discussions this weekend and everything online. Is like people are citing examples that to me are not the same. People are citing like Ryan Leonard. Ryan Leonard was a year older. He was 2 years post-draft.
Yeah, and 2 years in college, though.
And the Washington Capitals were the number 1 seed with a lot of wiggle room to play with. The Bruins are fighting for their playoff lives. It is different. And being 19 versus 20 is different. Like that just is. Like that those are different ages in a hockey player's development. I have said, and I maintain, I would start Hagens in Boston. That's what I would do. I totally see the argument, though, for Providence. Not for the rest of the season. That I don't agree with. I want him in Boston at some point. But if we're talking a week in Providence, play, 2 or 3 games over a weekend, I completely see that. Because one of the examples, if we go back 10 years, where a player did go from who was in really almost an identical situation, one of the very few situations similar to this, was Charlie McAvoy, who obviously was a first-round pick in 2016, had, just finished up his freshman year at BU when he got drafted, went back for his sophomore year, turned pro as a 19-year-old at the end of his sophomore year, played 4 games in Providence at the end of their regular season, and then joined the Bruins for the playoffs, jumped right into playoffs. because of injuries. That is one of the very few like actual legit comparisons where this situation is similar. And in that case, McAvoy played 4 AHL games. I don't think it's the end of the world if the Bruins want James Hagens to play in Providence to start for a few games. Again, if they say go down to Providence for the rest of the year and you're not sniffing Boston, I would disagree with that. But I think some of the reaction from people like just losing their minds over the idea that they're not just going to throw him right into Boston's lineup is a bit over the top for me and ignores a lot of unique aspects of this situation.
Brian, do you want to talk before I?
Well, the way it was billed to me was when I logged in to StreamYard today that you two had already been going at it. So
Yeah,
I would love to hear you go. I would love to hear you go now.
Okay. All right. So my fundamental disagreement with Scott's statement isn't that like going to Providence wouldn't help him. It's that if that's not what he wants to do, then why would you risk creating a bad situation with a prospect that is going to be in your organization for a long time? If it's over 4 games in Providence, like why even bother stirring the pot on that? That's obviously not what he wants. I think, from the moment he was drafted, he was pretty clear he wanted to start in Boston. If they would have let him right after the draft, he would have not gone to BC this year. And I think it's obvious that, speaking with a little bit of informed opinion, that side believes that Boston is the landing spot, not Providence. And I don't know. Obviously, if he wants to sign, there's going to have to be some sort of agreement. And it's going to have to be accepted. But I really just think he assumes and is probably holding out a little bit longer to see if he can convince them to start in Boston. And I just don't think it's worth messing with somebody that you're going to have a long relationship with over 4 games or so or whatever to start in Providence and then come back up. Now, I understand, obviously, you can say, well, who is he to say, where he should start? It's up to the organization, blah, blah, blah. Well, they have to agree about it. And it just seems that, and this is also part of Scott and I's argument, was, I'm sorry, but there is a spot for him, right? Like having him as an option isn't the worst thing in the world to add him to a lineup that is trying to make the playoffs, but that hasn't really solidified. And I know Reichel's had 2 good games. They have not solidified that spot in the lineup. They've rotated it around. Asimon's been out. Steve has been out. Reichel is in, but he's been here for 2 games. And I just don't really know if that's enough to be like, oh yeah, he's the guy there. Why not have Hagens, as an option there or somewhere else in your lineup in Boston? So my issue is with player management. I think you kind of got to do what he wants. So that's where I fall on that.
I really strongly disagree. Like, I'm sorry, but the Bruins' priority right now is to make the playoffs. It's not to make James Hagens happy. Now, like, there's a world where you can do both.
Yeah.
And yes, you have to take care of James Hagens because you've invested a lot in him. He's a 7th overall pick. He's the best prospect you've had in a decade. But if the Bruins, again, just talking like immediate short term, like talking Tuesday, Wednesday nights games, if they don't think their best lineup at this moment has James Hagens in it, then like, what is he coming here to? What is he doing this week? Like that they're gonna have so unless he signs literally in the next half hour, like he's not at Monday's practice. They're just gonna have a morning skate Tuesday. They're not gonna have anything Wednesday because it's a back-to-back. They're gonna be off Thursday. Like, so how valuable is that versus practicing in Providence and playing this weekend? And listen, if Reichel struggles the next 2 games, fine. Yeah, get Hagens in for the weekend. Like, absolutely. And honestly, I think if this happened a week ago and we're still talking about the AC Mont Steve's revolving door, maybe this is a little different. Maybe Hagens is the next guy you try ahead of Reichel. But I have a hard time ignoring the fact that Reichel has played well and that every line has seemingly solidified, at least in the immediate short term, meaning like the last 2 games. So like now what? I'm going to say like Lucas Reichel, hey, thanks for coming in, going down to Providence, which I'm sure he didn't want to do either, dominating for 3 games, coming up and playing well. Thanks for your hard work. You're going back to Providence because Hagens is coming in. Like, again, the Bruins are trying to win every single game. They're in the middle of a playoff race. That is their priority. It's not letting James Hagens dictate where and when he's going to play. Like they're just not in that situation. Like bad teams can do that. Washington could do it last year when they had a ton of wiggle room to work with. This is different, to me at least.
I mean, I still think there's a chance that Hagens is a upgrade on Reichel too. But I want to let Brian.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure.
I want to let Brian answer.
I mean, you guys just both have a lot of great points. It's bring in the dancing lobsters.
Are you the judge?
So the first thing I'll say is I see both sides of it. I really do, and I think James Hagens does play hockey for the Boston Bruins at some point this season, which really is all that really matters, and I think all ultimately that he's really going to care about. I think he'd rather start right away in Boston, but I think we don't all get what we want in life. But I also will say this, Bridget, to your point, there is a difference, I think, with the caliber of prospects at face value, right? David Pastrnak, when he was drafted, started in Providence, but he was drafted 23rd overall, and nobody knew back then that David Pastrnak was going to turn into who he is now and has been for a decade. And if you redrafted that class, he'd go number 2 behind Leon Draisaitl. Charlie McAvoy was drafted 14th overall. And as Scott pointed out, the only reason he didn't stay in Providence was because you had injuries that season towards the end of the year heading into the playoffs to Brandon Carlo, to Kevin Miller, to Adam McQuaid, to Colin Miller, to Torrey Krug. Like that blue line was in desperation mode. I do think there's a bit of a difference, just a slight one, with a 7th overall pick, and especially one who was thought to have gone top 3 pretty much until the final month before the draft happened. I do think there's a slight difference there, but ultimately, I do think that what the Bruins are thinking is more along the lines, right or wrong, from what Scott is saying. And I can't help but feel, and Scott touched on this a minute ago, and I feel the exact same way. And I mentioned it I quote tweeted Scott yesterday. If Morgan Geekie and Elias Lindholm were still going through a 5-on-5 scoreless drought since the Olympics, and we're playing with either Mikey Eyssimont or Alex Steeves, I don't think this debate's even happening right now. I think the fact and the reality is the fact that Reichel has come in and he's helped rejuvenate Geekie and Lindholm a little bit. I think the Bruins view Geekie and Lindholm's games as a bit vulnerable right now. And they're probably looking at it saying, hey, right here, right now, if Reichel is helping these guys go, we're seeing that. We think theoretically Hagens would too, but we just, right this second, we don't know if we want to disrupt what's finally gotten these two going for the first time in a month. Now, is that short-sighted? A little bit, but it's also, to Scott's point, they're focusing on the team making the playoffs. Listen, personally, I think that James Hagens enters this lineup right now, and I think he's helping them. I don't think the Bruins are now going to miss the playoffs because Hagens is around. I just think the Bruins are sitting back saying, somehow, some way it's going to work out. You're going to get your chance here probably this season. Somebody gets hurt, somebody falters with their play, to Scott's point, or you just go down in Providence and you force your way up here after a couple of games. I think there's something very vulnerable and fragile right now about the Bruins with the state of a couple of their forwards and their spot in the standings, where, again, if you agree with the Bruins or not, I just think that's where their mentality is. And, that's really all I have to say on it, right? So I don't necessarily agree or disagree with any one of you, but I just think that's the reality we're talking about right now. Now we'll see what happens. Maybe he signs while we're recording and he's practicing, but
no, he's
yeah,
signing 8 minutes after we log off.
I just feel like if the whole Reichel experiment wasn't happening in real time, I think
Twitter.
What's that? Yeah, no, seriously.
Twitter.
But don't you guys feel the same way? If this whole I'm not saying that the Bruins are choosing Lucas Reichel over James Hagens long term. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what Scott's saying. I do think though, if the Lucas Reichel experiment wasn't happening right now and working, I don't even think this is a conversation. I don't even think it's a conversation.
Okay, well, riddle me this. So Hagens is also a very fast player that played a majority on the left wing this year.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have been paying how much we're watching Reichel's D zone play, but it's not the best. And I think Hagens actually might be an upgrade defensively as well.
But isn't there also stuff for him to learn? Like the Bruins play a different system than BC.
I mean, Lucas Reichel has played for the Bruins for 2 games.
Right, and he spent 3 games in Providence learning.
So it's very short-sighted, and Bridget, you're not wrong. And again, I need to say it again. I would want to see Hagens in the lineup on Tuesday. Again, I just think that I admit it's short-sighted by the Bruins. They are focused. The Bruins are focused right now, and this does go back to your point, Bridget, about pissing off a high prospect. And I think there's something to talk about there. And I don't think that means James is a bad kid. That is worth touching on after this. But I just think right now the Bruins are scratching and clawing for every point. And I don't even think that the Bruins think James Hagens would be incapable. I think it's a matter of we're seeing one thing work right now. We think another thing could work, but we're seeing one thing work right now, and every point matters. So I just think the Bruins are taking it a game at a time right now, and that could come at the expense of sending James to Providence. And Bridget, to your point earlier, you do have to politic a little bit because, like I said, you're not talking about a 23rd overall pick in Pasternak, who nobody knew he was going to be, David Pasternak. We're not even talking about a 14th overall pick in McAvoy. We're talking about a 7th overall pick who was supposed to be a top 3 pick, who, oh, by the way, did the team a solid and was a good Samaritan and went back to school for his sophomore year when we all know he wanted to do the pro route anyway, probably. But again, you're young. You don't have all the leverage in that situation. But we should acknowledge that Hagens has done what he's asked him at this point.
It's also, let's be clear. It's not like they forced him to go back to BC against his will. He was happy to go back.
Yeah, we know that.
He was fine with that. It's not. He was not miserable this year. I think he had a good time.
Scott, would he have rather have been at the NHL level to start the year?
Yeah.
Okay, that's all we're saying. He would have rather that. He heard the team out. He understood what they were saying, and he happily was a good Samaritan and went back to school where he does love BC. But the reality is, he wasn't a prima donna about it. He said, yes, sir. You guys got it. So he probably feels in his heart of hearts, I've already done what I was supposed to do to this point. And so I think that James is probably hoping that now the team would meet him halfway and allow him to sign pro right away. But the reality is, to all the points that you made, Scott, they're right in the thick of a playoff race. And I do think that Reichel helping Geeky and Lindholm right now, there haven't been a lot of David Pasternak hasn't for some reason been able to help those guys right now, but for some reason Lucas Reichel has been the magic solution. So I just don't think they want to tinker with that right this second. That's my gut feeling on it.
Can I say this was over a week ago that I was on Nesson with Sophia and Casey, and it was before they split up and put Lindholm and Geeky on the third line. It was before they put the kids line officially back together. I said, there is a perfect spot for James Hagens to come in and join Elias Lindholm and Morgan Geeky because those two are very similar to a line he played on for a good chunk of the second half and was a really good line at BC. And it would fit perfectly. I also think it's a safe, really easy landing spot for him because theoretically Elias Lindholm is, defensively sound and good enough to balance out any, if he's making a mistake, there's a little bit of give there, right? There's a little extra leeway because Elias Lindholm, though he hasn't done a lot offensively, we know he's a good defensive player. and he can cover up a blemish here and there if it happens. And Morgan Geekie is somebody who thinks the game at a really high level. So is James Hagens. And I just thought that the combination made so much sense before they even put Lindholm and Geekie on that third line together, and before they found their fit on that left side. I just think it fits so well. It's right there. That's maybe what bothers me most, is like, it would work. I'm convinced it would work. And I also think that Lukas Reichel, who you spent a 6th round pick on, was added for depth. And if there was an injury, he would be the guy you would go to then. And that Hagens should be the guy that has the spot for now.
And I mean, a week ago, I agreed with that. Like, I think we all said that there was a very obvious opening on the roster, but I guess I'm going more game to game. And like, I'm not saying Lukas Reichel is a better option than James Hagens the entire rest of the season. I'm saying like Tuesday and Wednesday night, I think he probably is. James Hagens is obviously going to be a better player than Lukas Reichel. That would be a massive disappointment if he's not. I'm not convinced he's a better player right this moment, Tuesday and Wednesday night. And I'm not as convinced that it's going to work, quote unquote. Like, again, I'll go back to Ryan Leonard last year. Struggled when he got to Washington, and he was a year older, and he was more physically mature or physically developed. Seemed in a better spot to handle the physicality of the NHL. Now, Hagens has other advantages over Leonard. Like, he's a better skater. I think he has better vision. I think he's a better playmaker who reads the game better. So he might have more success than Leonard. But Ryan Leonard came in and had 2 points in 17 NHL games to close out last season. If Hagens comes in and that's what you get, how much is that quote unquote working? Again, Lukas Reichel, who I don't think is like anything super special, but he has 2 points in 2 games. Like, I just can't ignore that reality for a team that is going very much on a game by game basis where every point matters.
Yeah, I mean, I think Hagens could come in right now, and I think he would do more than, I think he'd score at a better pace than 2 and 17. I don't think he would come in and be a detriment. I think he would help guys around him. I think he's that good of a talent. I'm not saying he would be his end all be all right now. I do think he would help. I just think that the Bruins, they just don't want to mess with what's working in this moment, even if that means, because until you see it, you don't know how they would mesh. But they've seen Lindholm and Geekie struggle for so long, and they're finally getting some mojo back into their game. And for whatever reason, it's with Lukas Reichel. And I just think they're taking it one game at a time. Now, I will say, I don't think that their opponent on Tuesday night is the toughest of matchups. And if you did want to ease Hagens into his first pro game at the NHL level, I think a floundering Toronto Maple Leafs team would be the one at home to do it against. So there's that as well, because the Bruins do have the toughest remaining schedule in the NHL this season to close out the year. But Tuesday is not what's factoring into that strength of schedule. So that could be an opportunity as well to give him a look, right? But again, we don't know what they're going to do.
It would have been, and we don't know if maybe it still could be the case, but like, would have been a cool story for that to be the first game too. Being against Toronto, being in the situation that they are. Obviously, he didn't want a season to end at college early. Like, they were genuinely disappointed that they lost to UConn in the semifinals. They like each other. Like, they wanted to keep playing. They wanted to play into the NCAA tournament. It's not going to happen. But
last game with his brother too. He'll never play with his brother again, right?
Yeah,
little things like that too.
Yep, yeah, and some of pretty much maybe the only one that he'll play with again could be maybe just Gasso and Letourneau at some point, but yeah, it would be, I think.
Wow, for Bridget calling Will Moore a bust.
I don't know what his future holds, but I think
Will Moore could still be an NHLer. He has a ways to go, but he'll be at BC 3 years.
He'll be, and so will Dean. In case people are wondering, like, Dean's not signing after this season. Like, that's why this has only been a James Hagens argument, because Dean will stay in college. That'd be a huge shock if he didn't. If like he signs to Hagens, that'd be crazy. But that's not going to happen. But I think Gasso will sign in Providence, and I haven't heard anything about that. Andre Gasso is a senior, so he has to decide, to sign pretty much. And so, yeah, I haven't heard anything from that front. I think there's only one BC guy that did sign already, right? Am I wrong about that?
Yeah, I think just Fortescue with the Rangers.
Yeah, that was it.
Guys, outside of the effect on Hagens' spot in the lineup right now, just generally speaking, aside from Hagens, I actually long-term, and I don't think this is exactly what you guys meant. Maybe you guys meant more so right now. But in terms of Lukas Reichel, I think the Bruins are hoping he's more than a depth forward for them going forward. Like, I mean, he wasn't a first-round pick, 17th overall, not that long ago. It was during COVID. And his speed and his skill in his hands are that of clearly somebody who was a first-round talent and still young at, 23 years old? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think that they're hoping that he's a situation of just wasn't the right fit in Chicago, wasn't the right fit in Vancouver. Maybe they weren't optimizing his skill set or who he is as a player. Maybe he still has some growing to do both on and off the ice. I don't know. But I think the Bruins are looking at him as somebody who could be, a top 9 forward for them for a bit, at least based on his raw skill and talent. Whether he continues to turn it into a reality is up to him. But you look at him at 23, Husnudinov at 23, Minton at 21, Hagens at 19. I mean, there's 4 or 5 forwards right there that all of a sudden like should be intermediate to longer term players in this team. And the only intermediate one I'm thinking of could be I don't know what they do with Husnudinov long term, but he's certainly around for the next little while.
Yeah, I definitely think they are hoping that there's more there with Reichel and that he can be their latest, reclamation success project, like a Morgan Geekie or, Pavel Zacha had definitely much better NHL track record, but had not even come close to his ceiling yet in New Jersey. And then there's the guys who, just didn't get NHL opportunities like a Jonathan Aspero or Alex Steves, Parker Wotherspoon, Justin Brazzett, they've done this with a lot of guys recently to varying degrees of success. Some have become NHL depth guys. Some have become NHL regulars. Some, at least one, like Morgan Geekie, became an NHL star. So they're hoping that he at least ends up somewhere on that spectrum of an NHL player and like a regular for them. So maybe we're seeing the start of that, or maybe it takes a whole off season and training camp next year. But one other thing I'll say on this in terms of like because we're talking a lot about Hagens versus Reichel. I've also seen people say like bench someone on the 4th line, and move like a Marat Husnudinov or a Fraser Minton down the lineup. And I just don't think the Bruins are going to do that. Like, I just think they feel like that 4th line has an identity that Marco Sturm really values.
Yeah.
And I don't see them benching one of those guys. Like, I saw from more than one person on Twitter, like, put Husnudinov at 4th line center or 4th line wing. And I'm like, he hasn't been 4th line center all year. He hasn't been a wing in that line since October. I just don't think like they're doing a more dramatic lineup shuffle like that. I mean, maybe they could, but I don't really see that happening. Like I said, I think whether you think that 4th line's good enough or not, I think they bring an identity that Sturm values, and I really don't see him touching it.
I've also seen people say start Hagens on the 4th line, which is definitely not going to happen.
No.
That's very, very far from what would happen. I think that's probably the last thing that would happen.
I don't think that would ever happen.
No.
It's just not. It's not his skill set. It's not what they would.
They
It's
go
not
in for
even.
D zone starts. Like it's
No.
just it's a very unglamorous spot, and people might think, oh, you develop from you move your way up the lines. That's not really
No.
necessarily how it works. It's like some people that's what they have to do, but other people just don't fit a fourth line role. Think about how many times we talked about that with Fabian Lysell. Like they're not going to throw him in
No.
there. Like it doesn't necessarily.
Sorry, this is like another thing that's gotten me going this weekend is like Hagens is going to be the next Potter or Lysell that they're just going to bury in Providence for years. And I'm like, James Hagens is a completely different tier of prospect than Fabian Lysell and even than Matt Poitras. I'm like, now listen, if I'm wrong in 2 years from now, James Hagens is riding buses with the Providence Bruins, I'll eat it and I'll be like, you know what? You guys were right. Like they fucked this up. That's not what they're going to do. Like that is not how they view this. Yeah. James Hagens is not getting stuck down in Providence for the next 2 or 3 years.
The latest his debut for the Bruins is going to be is opening night next season.
Yeah.
Like, and you know what's funny about the fourth line comment, Bridget, is as you were talking, and I was like, yeah, that's never going to happen. I actually had a flashback to Claude Julien playing David Pastrnak at times on the fourth line when he was a bit younger too, which I hated that at the time as well. But whatever. So I guess there has been precedent in the past of somebody with some extreme talent being in the fourth line role, but that was Claude. Just he was in his dying days as Bruins head coach at that point. Yeah. So anyway, where do you guys want to go from here? Was there any lingering thoughts on Hagens?
I think I've got it off my chest.
I have as well. Yeah.
We'll take it off air. We'll just yell at each other off air from now. If we have anything else, we can get to other stuff.
Yeah.
But before we get too far away, though, do you want to congratulate your Merrimack College, Brian, for first ever Hockey East title?
Yep.
That's awesome. UConn still ends up making the tournament as the final at-large team. Bentley going back to NCAAs, winning Atlantic Hockey the second year in a row. Mm-hmm. And Dartmouth, so Dartmouth was going to make NCAAs no matter what, but they win their first ever ECAC tournament title. Dartmouth College in the NCAA tournament for the first time in 46 years. 1980 was the last time they made NCAAs.
Wow.
And that's a good team, by the way. Like, I'm telling you right now, do not be surprised if Dartmouth is in the Frozen Four. That team's legit. Like they got upperclassmen, they got some top undrafted free agents that are going to draw a lot of interest, including CJ Foley, who was at Bruins development camp. Yep. Their top defenseman. So
he was impressive.
Actually. Yeah, that's a good team. Hayden Stavroff leads the country in goals. Hank Cleaves, his center on the top line. He's going to draw interest. 6'4", two-way center playmaker.
And they're at the Worcester Regional, so they're the UConn and Dartmouth are the two New England teams that are closest. Unfortunately for fans of Merrimack, Providence, Quinnipiac, they're in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, in the regional that North Dakota is the highest seed in. So yeah, they're out there. Bentley is in Albany. I guess it's not too far, but I know those in the Hockey East worlds weren't really happy that two of their teams are in Sioux Falls, but that's where Merrimack is. They start out against North Dakota. I do want to say too, there's a little bit of Bruins Merrimack crossover news because Mark Diver reported during the semifinal, right after the semifinal, that Max Lundgren, who carried Merrimack through the whole season, played every minute this season, had a great playoffs, is expected to go to Bruins development camp this year. So does he come instead of Alvin Boya, who's had an extremely down year, wasn't even the goalie in net for the playoffs for Maine? And Svedback being injured at the end of the season, he's not going to be their goalie for Providence's playoffs. So trying to figure out what's next in the development ladder for goalies in the Bruins system. Lundgren will come in and maybe he's somebody that they add. He's a junior. Merrimack desperately wants him to come back for his senior year. But he's caught NHL attention, including the Bruins.
I was gonna say that there's gonna be more than a few teams, I think, that try to sign him now. So his plans to go to development camp, that's if that's assuming he does go back to Merrimack for another year. I think there's gonna be teams that try to convince him not to. So we'll see, maybe including the Bruins. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, he was awesome. I mean, 49 out of 50 in the championship game. I think 73 of 74 in the weekend. Like, I mean, that's like Connor Hellebuck type stuff. Like, that's what he did back in the day at UMass Lowell. They would get Lowell would get to the Garden, and Hellebuck just was unbeatable, just an absolute brick wall. And like that's what Max Lundgren was this weekend.
Yeah, well, he had a record for the first time since Hellebuck did it in 2014. He was the first goalie to have a shutout in the semis. And so, I mean, he was up there in the record books now with Hellebuck in terms of that stat. But I see for Brian, I'm sure you want him to come back. As somebody who works in Hockey East, it's always better when the talent stays and is, keeps everything competitive. But I wonder if he takes stock in what happened with Alvin Boya and signs while he's got the interest and doesn't go back and give anybody time to watch him have a down year, maybe, like take the deal while you're at your peak value, which I think if Alvin Boya would have signed after last season, maybe he would be with the Province Bruins, maybe he would be with some other NHL team, and now his stock has gone way down. So do you want to risk that? Go back to college for a year and have your stock go down before you are able to sign. So I kind of have a feeling. I have kind of a feeling that he might sign this off season, but I know they don't want him to. So anyway,
time will tell, guys. I wanted to, for the last few minutes here, just jump back to that Bruins game because we talked a lot about Hagens, but we touched on the Bruins game against the Red Wings. It was a huge game, huge 2 points. And Scott, your opening shift was about Swayman. And Swayman was outstanding. He was fantastic. And I don't want to gloss over that. I will just say I wouldn't classify Saturday night as a game where from start to finish he stole the Bruins that game. I do feel like the Bruins played a pretty strong first road period. And I thought that in the second period, I thought the Bruins are also, kind of exchanging chances with the Red Wings. So I don't want to. Jeremy Swayman was the top star for the Bruins. He was the biggest reason that they won. But I don't think that it was a situation where the Bruins just didn't show up outside of their goalie. I do think the Bruins played a pretty decent road game. I think once the penalties started to get called and I felt like Detroit kind of found their way a little bit later as the game went along. But I felt like Boston came out strong. I felt like they recognized the moment better than Detroit did to start the game for the first certainly for most of the first period and then maybe parts of the second. And I think, like I said, I think Detroit started to take over a bit, even though the Bruins outscored them in the third period. So I do want to give the team credit outside of Swayman as well.
Yeah, I thought they were playing really well until they started getting to penalty trouble, which I was worried like that was going to lose them the game. They, late in the first period, they take 2 penalties, Kastelic trip, and then the Middlestat hook was not a penalty. That was just an awful call. That was stick on stick. Ref calls him for a hook for some reason. But the Bruins killed those off. But then Hampus Lindholm, here's your nightly Hampus Lindholm stick penalty.
Anybody take a shot?
High sticking early in the second period. The Bruins go on the kill for the third time in 9 minutes of game action and finally get beat on a nice setup to Lucas Raymond. And I was just like, yeah, it's just like they get out of a little bit of penalty trouble and then they just can't help themselves. And they just take another one. They're like, let's try it a third time. It's like, nope, too many.
And it's always our boy Hampus. It's always Hampus with the worst time. Yeah. It's like, you're going to take a penalty. That's one thing. But when he does it is so like, it's just infuriating.
And we said this before too. It's like, it's always the one that gets scored on.
It's what it feels like.
It's like no matter what, everyone else could get away with it, and then they score on the one that it's just what happens.
It's borderline comical at this point. You kind of have to laugh at it at this point. I mean, my God.
It's like they're gonna anytime now that they kill like back-to-back penalties, Sturm and Jay Leach is gonna be like, restraining Hampus Lindholm. They're like, don't go on the ice. Wait 5 minutes.
Remember that that Twitter account back in the day? It was like, did Steven Drew get a home run?
Oh, yeah.
And every day it was like, no. It's like, did Hampus Lindholm get a penalty? Yes.
Yeah, it's just you have like the counter thing. It's been 0 days since Hampus Lindholm took an untimely stick penalty.
Exactly. Yeah.
But then then Detroit gives it right back, getting into their own penalty trouble. Shout out Moritz Seider clearing a puck 200 feet into the netting. That's one way to take a delay a game puck over glass. And then the Bruins capitalize on the 5-on-3. So. But yeah, I'm with you. Like they played well for 40 minutes. I think where Swayman, stole the game, or however you want to classify it, was that stretch in the third period where, again, it's really just the dichotomy of like Gibson not rising to the occasion and Swayman getting absolutely peppered and standing tall.
Can we give Nikita Zadorov his props for scoring the game-winning goal and coming out of absolutely nowhere? Like, I don't know if anyone had that on their sheet. He gets a second goal of the season, just blasts it, and I was surprised. Like, as in, like, I just thought, oh, this game looks like it's going to overtime. I was like, has overtime written all over it. And then, like, I think maybe only a minute after thinking that, Zadorov scores and it's 3-2, and you're like, all right, wow, maybe not. Maybe like this could be what the Bruins needed, and it happens to be Nikita Zadorov who does it. And McAvoy got his 44th assist of the season on it, by the way. That's crazy. And then Husnudinov scores the empty net goal to solidify the win. So just a really important goal from Nikita Zadorov, because if that doesn't happen, maybe we're looking at overtime. Maybe we're looking at an overtime loss. Could have gone anyway. And then obviously that was late, and forced eventually a few minutes later, forced them to pull the goalie. He scores. So, that was an important goal. Which is
a great look off, by the way, by David Pastrnak, because he very much faked out Seider, who thought, and who was the other forward that was on the way back? Was it Kane? I think it was Kane, maybe. They both thought he was going for the empty net shot, and he pump faked him, found Husnudinov, and it was Pasternak's 500th career assist, worth mentioning. On Gibson, I think I heard on the broadcast that was his 8th consecutive start. So when you look at the goal that he gave up to Elias Lindholm, which again, great for Lindholm to get off the schneid there, but again, not a goal that should go in. And then the Zadorov goal, which was leaky as well. Maybe you start to look at his usage. But the Pastrnak goal on the power play was also a big one too, guys, because it ties the game 1-1. It's a power play goal, which we know the Bruins have been, even at 5-on-3, sometimes have been struggling. But it's been a while since David's converted on the power play himself, right? And especially, that was a quintessential textbook David Pastrnak one-timer goal in the power play, which we haven't seen as much just this season in general, right? He's been a big time facilitator. The goals are a little bit down, but that patented Pastrnak one-timer, because oftentimes he's been playing the other side. So it was good to see that go in for him. And again, down the stretch here, it's okay. It wasn't going for you at different times this year, but now it is. It's the right time to be doing it.
Yeah, it was his first power play goal since January 22nd. I think it was 21 games without one, which they were talking about on the broadcast, like almost reverse jinxing it into happening. So yeah, I'm sure that felt good for him. Zadorov, you could tell it was funny after the game. I don't know if you guys saw Zadorov's post-game interview, but I think it was Jim McBride and I forget who else was in like on the scrum, but they seemingly wanted to like, I don't know, kind of like joke about, hey, like must be nice kind of, get your first goal in several months. And you could tell like Zadorov was kind of frustrated that it had been that long. He was like, yeah, good to see one go in. And he's like, I think I should be scoring about 10 goals a year. So he's not really having much of the joking around about it.
Why would anybody be surprised at that?
Right.
That's not the vibe that you go in with in a Zadorov interview. You don't go in trying to make a joke about him not. Yeah. No,
it's a tough year. It's a tough year for stats for certain players when reporters can pull the old, it's been 2 months, it's been 3 months. Well, yeah, that's true. We didn't play for a month because of the Olympics, but are you accounting for that or no? Right.
Yeah.
But yeah.
By the way, also on the stats front, Charlie McAvoy now 3 points away from his career high in points, and doing it in a season where obviously he missed a decent chunk of time with the broken jaw.
Best points per game by far in his career. So even if he doesn't exceed his previous point total, he's still probably going to end up with his highest production per game. I imagine he'll pass that, right? So, guys, give me your thoughts on Morgan Geekie quickly. I mean, we spent a lot of time on him when he's been struggling, and we know he's a goal scorer, but it hasn't been the goal scoring that's been getting him out of his offensive funk. It's been being a facilitator. Like I said, 4 assists his last 2 games, and 3 of them being primaries and being big goals too, right? That he helps contribute to.
Yeah, and you hope that he's the kind of player where just seeing any kind of points gets him going. If I'm being nitpicky, like I still want him to score goals. Or like he's got one of the best shots in the league. He had 2 shot attempts on Saturday, 1 on goal. Like you still want to see that number go up. You want to see Morgan Geekie shooting the puck more, but in the meantime, he should feel good about the assists and just seeing some points start to accrue, because what was it, 11 games out of break, he didn't have a single 5-on-5 points. So he really just needed anything at all in that column. So he's at least getting that.
Put him with Hagens and see.
That's the thumbnail title. Just put him with Hagens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Scott, there's been times this year too where people have criticized like David's lack of goal scoring, and you'll be like, well, he does have, whatever, a stupid amount of assists. And so I guess even though Geekie is more one-dimensional, then obviously David's not one-dimensional at all in terms of offense. But I guess like it's okay to for a short time here be like, hey, as long as he's scoring, right? Like it should lead to. That's why I was saying when he got that assist, who was it? Aspero's goal against the Jets. It was a 6-1 goal, and I remember just thinking to myself, listen, it's garbage time, but just getting a primary assist right now for him at 5-on-5, hopefully that does wonders for his confidence. And lo and behold, the next game he gets 3 assists. So I don't know if it's just a coincidence or if it really confidence and getting the monkey off your back. If that can just, I think that's just the way life works. Sometimes we all kind of can empathize with that. But are there any final takeaways from the two of you before we sign out today?
I don't think so. Do you guys try the old give Toronto a point Tuesday night? I'm joking. Obviously, you just got to take care of business and try to win no matter what. But
I've known you long enough, Scott. You're starting to rub off on me too with the hockey karma stuff. So
yeah, him and his karma. We know he's being facetious, because don't let the universe know you're losing on purpose. But no, but no. I still think that they will get that Toronto pick.
It's gonna be close.
It's gonna be close. But let them get their points against other people getting the points.
I'll say this: if they do get their pick, Bridget, it's gonna be probably the best pick possible.
It's gonna be great.
If they get the pick, it's gonna be 6 or 7, right? They're not gonna go. They're not gonna drop
6,
down.
7.
No. Sign off right quickly.
No, because as we learned last year, because we were so hyper fixated on the draft and the lottery, we know you can only drop 2 spots max from your finishing position in the standing. So if Toronto finishes 6th overall, or you know what I mean, 6th, from the bottom, they can't pick worse than 8, right? And that would be Boston's pick. So There's a really good chance if the Bruins get Toronto's pick, it's going to be between 6 and 9 overall.
Also,
and if they don't get the pick, well, damn.
if they don't get the pick, I think it'll be because Toronto won the draft, like bumped up in the lottery.
Agreed.
So because if you look at who else is currently would be picking ahead of them, good luck catching those bottom 3 teams. And I still don't think you catch the bottom 4. So like you're in the 5th spot, right? And then someone jumps you in the lottery and you're now in the 6th. You know what I mean? Like even if they finish 5th pre-lottery, they could finish 6th or 7th the same way the Bruins did last year. They were 5th, they finished 7th. Which would
St.
really
Louis
be
is
a hilarious way for that to happen. But
St. Louis is ruining a lot of things by randomly waking up down the stretch and playing good hockey. They're 7-1-2 in their last 10.
Insert the Jim Montgomery with Jim Montgomery face on Doug from King of Queens, where he's like, yeah. Wow, that was way too quick, Bridget, that you had that in the queue. That was.
I have it on here. I don't know why I still have it on here. It's right next to my Scott's face.
Oh no, it's not his. It's with his hands in his pockets, right? He's like his hands are in his pockets.
Yeah.
This one's just labeled Smug Monty.
Yeah.
Monty was a good dude. I liked Monty.
There were a lot of good Monty memes. There's him on the bench, like rubbing his face, covering his eyes.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, that'll do it for this episode. Everybody can, refresh your Twitter feeds. Keep your eye on the horizon for what happens with James Hagens, and we will be back on Wednesday to discuss. Take care.
Or we might do Thursday, maybe. After the
yes, that's right. We have to figure out our schedule this week. So we'll keep your eye on Twitter. We'll update when we're dropping.
For us and for Hagens. We'll see.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Thank you all for listening. Take care. Hey guys, thanks for watching the Skate Podcast. If you want to see more of our videos, visit our playlist.
Not in front of a screen? You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Don't forget to follow us on social media. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment.